All right, everybody, welcome back to Horn Takes Live. I'm your host, Sean Redfern. Texas starts out the Big 12 Fuck You Tour with a 38-6 mauling of the Baylor Bears in Waco, Texas, Saturday night. Up next, Kansas Jayhawks, top 25 ranked team, undefeated, Saturday afternoon in Austin, Texas. I think it's going to be a tough test for Texas. We'll get into that a little bit more in the quick and dirty, and certainly a lot more on Thursday night's show. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, maybe you drive around a lot, check us out at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. Trying to get to 200 on Twitter. We've been using Twitter for, we've had an account for a while, but we've only been using Twitter for just a few months. Trying to get to 5,000 on TikTok. We're at 4,400 right now. Trying to get us to 1,000 on YouTube. If all 4,400 of my subscribers or followers on TikTok would hit the little button in my TikTok bio, the YouTube button, and hit subscribe, we'd reach that goal easily. Week 4, Tres Otra Games recap. We pick 3 games every week, games that are interesting to us, and we talk about them. Last week started off, we talked about number 4 Florida State at Clemson. FSU went into this game as a 2.5-point favorite. I kind of thought FSU would struggle on the road in this one, and I think they did a little bit. They got a really big defensive play sort of late in the game for a touchdown. Big hit on Cade Klubnik. Loses the ball. Florida State picks it up. Huge train of Florida State Seminoles run into the end zone. I think that kind of changed the momentum of the game. I thought Clemson would get it done. I thought they'd get it done 38-28, and man, I thought they played a really good game. The thing about Florida State, they're not very consistent, but they are very, very explosive. They find ways to score points in big chunks and real quick. Florida State wins this one 31-24, so we go 0 for 1 right off the bat on Tres Otra Games. By the way, folks, we went 1-3 weeks 1 and 2, and we went 2 for 3 last week. So we're shooting for either 2 for 3 or 3-0 would be really nice this week. We're already down 0-1. Next game, number 15 Ole Miss at number 13 Bama. Bama was a 7-point favorite. We talked about on the show last Thursday, there was blood in the water in the SEC. These coaches, I think, in the SEC see Alabama and see Nick Saban as vulnerable. This might be one of their only shots to get in there and get Nick Saban. I wasn't buying it, folks. I said Nick Saban still got it. I think the O-line gets back on track. Bama still has one of the best rosters in college football, one of the top 2. You could argue either way, but it's certainly them in Georgia with the best rosters in college football. I said Bama would get it done 35-24 rather. They ended up winning 24-10, and actually Alabama left a lot of points on the table in this game, so could have been a lot worse for Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin still can't beat his old boss. Looked really dejected after the game, even talked about it after the game. So we're 1-1 now. The rubber match game for us, number 6 Ohio State at number 9 Notre Dame. Ohio State's a 3-point favorite headed into this game. We talked about it being the battle of the undefeateds, but kind of the battle of the untesteds as well. Like, to me, Notre Dame hadn't played anybody. Haven't been impressed with really anybody Ohio State's played. But, however, a really big opportunity for both of these teams to get sort of a signature win early on in the season in 2023. Again, we talked about Notre Dame. There's a lot of people high on Notre Dame, including Lou Holtz, apparently. But I wasn't one of them. I didn't think that Notre Dame had anywhere close to the same type of roster as Ohio State. I felt like Notre Dame had played just a who's of nobody. And I said TOSU, little T, OSU. goes into South Bend and gets it done 27-20. Of course, they won 17-14 on a wild sort of series of plays there late where Notre Dame didn't have enough guys on the field on defense. Really bizarre. So we do end up going 2 for 3 in the Tres Otra games in week 4. We'll try to do better this week. Week 4 opponent for Texas was the Baylor Bears. Texas obviously looking to go 4-0. Baylor looking to bounce back and get to 500. It was an ass whooping, y'all. And honestly, it was way worse than the score indicated. We predicted this game 38-17, ended up being 38-6. Could have easily been 41-6. Really could have easily been much worse than that. I had some big questions going this game. Every single Thursday we do Sean's big questions of the game for the Texas Longhorn game. Number one question was, could Sark figure out a way to get a quick start offensively? We hadn't really seen it at all this season. The offense has struggled early on, exploded late in games. Talked about question number 2, does the Texas front 7 feast? And can the back end hold up? Because Baylor likes to throw the ball deep. Texas has been really good at rushing the passer and getting pressure on the passer all last season and all of this season so far. This season they've been turning those pressures into sacks. Would this be a game where they kind of just busted out and really got after the quarterback? Question number 3 for us was, what comes first Saturday night, the run or the pass? We've been talking really since Steve Sarkisian got to Texas about how I feel like he just underutilizes the run and opts to throw the ball a lot early in drives, early in games, as opposed to maybe establishing a running game, opening up some of those deep throws that he really, really likes to go after. And then the last question, would we truly see this team embrace the hate of the Big 12? The Hateful Eight, super hateful all summer. Steve Sarkisian talked about it. We finally understand what it means to be Texas. We get it now. We might as well go out and start punching people in the mouth instead of sitting back and taking punches. Would this team be able to go on the road against a Baylor team that's really not that good? Heavy favorites. Would they be able to go on the road and show up with a chip on their shoulder? Offensively, they threw for 328 yards through the air with 1 touchdown. Had 175 yards on the ground with 4 touchdowns, and I'm really excited about that. The first 4 touchdowns of the game, all on run plays. The offensive line absolutely got it done up front. I think they're starting to gel. They're starting to get a little bit better. They were really, really nasty in this game. There's a clip of Christian Jones, big right tackle. And again, Christian Jones is kind of an amazing story because 2 seasons ago, Christian Jones was bad. And the way he's developed under Kyle Flood, and I'll give him some credit as well. Nobody goes to college and just gets developed. You say that you hear that all the time. This coaching staff can develop players. Well, there is certainly a piece of developing players that the coaching staff is responsible for. But if the players don't put in the effort, they're not going to get developed. You don't just go to college and get developed through osmosis. So kudos to Christian Jones for stepping up, doing the work he needed to do to develop himself. I think that guy's going to play in the NFL one day. But back to this clip. Some run play late in the game. Christian Jones gets out to the second level, is just bullying people all over the field. He gets into 2 Baylor defensive backs, pushes them about 3, 4, 5 yards apiece. And then all of a sudden, Hayden Connor looked like he kind of jumped over the pile a little bit and bumped into Christian Jones, and Christian Jones gave him a friendly fire shot. And you could just, like, he must have just been in the mode, like he must have just, you can say like he saw red. You can say, I don't know what you would call it. He was focused. He was dialed in. He was just hitting everything that was moving is basically what he was doing. Thought it was awesome. I love to see that. I love to see the big guys really figure out that they're big and they can go kick people's asses. CJ Baxter, I felt like in the running game was not anywhere close to 100%. On the very first carry, he looked like he was hobbling out of bounds. He was trying to kind of avoid contact. However, he did get his first career touchdown with a really easy trip into the end zone. I'm kind of torn. Like, I want to see CJ Baxter. I want to be able to see him do what he can do for an entire game. But I also feel like, man, we need to get this guy healthy. And I'm not saying he's 100% unhealthy, but he's definitely nicked up. He just did not look. He didn't look like he was 100% on that. I guess it's an ankle. I thought Jonathan Brooks had another really, really good game. To me, I know CJ Baxter had all the fanfare coming out of high school. I know that obviously the coaching staff felt he was the guy that should be getting the first team reps and first team snaps coming into games. I really feel like Jonathan Brooks is the guy. 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had a 40-yarder to get Texas started. Jonathan Brooks isn't a elite type sprinter, but Jonathan Brooks certainly has breakaway, you ain't going to catch me speed. He put it on display in that game. 106 yards on 18 carries. That's 5.9 yards per game. 5.9 yards per rush. On the season, he's got 379 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5.8 yards per carry. Feed that man. Feed Jonathan Brooks. I thought it was good to see Quinn Ewers use his legs again. That's been a theme a lot of this season. None of it's been real flashy except for that really Vince Young-esque 29-yard touchdown run he had against Baylor. I'm saying that jokingly, obviously. But he's utilizing his legs in key moments in games, a lot of third downs. I like it. I think that's very important for a quarterback to be able to make the defense pay for turning your back on him. Passing game, I thought it was really good. To answer one of our big questions, Sean's big questions, what would come first, the pass or the run? It was the pass. Lost 5-6 yards on the first play. Brooks gets 6 on second down. First drive stalls out because we just keep trying to throw the ball. 2 runs on 2nd and 16 and 3rd and 3. I think the downfield blocking game in the passing game is continuing to be really good. It's getting better and better every week. You look at that big Ewers run, JT Sanders turned from a pass receiver to a blocker real quick and just walled his guy off. Just a really outstanding block. I thought Ewers had his best game of 2023. Nothing was flashy about it, but he didn't miss a lot. He was 18 of 23 for 293 yards and a touchdown. 78% completion percentage, and I think if you get anything up over 70, that's really, really good. And then you kind of go back and look at those throws. One of his incompletes was a batted ball. One of his incompletes was a throwaway to JT Sanders way out of the back of the end zone. I say it was to JT Sanders. He was the only Texas receiver in the vicinity. I felt like his only bad miss was a ball to Sanders down the seam in the first half. Overthrew him just a little bit. Speaking of JT Sanders, that dude is an absolute unit of a weapon for this Texas offense. He is so physically gifted in the passing game. Had a catch, did a hurdle, You just don't see, you shouldn't see dudes that big be able to hurdle people the way he hurdled this kid. One-handed catch on a little seam route up the middle on an RPO, just absolutely beautiful to watch, man. I think what makes this Texas passing game so deadly, or so potentially deadly, is the fact that you've got JT Sanders that he can get down the field. He's not a tight end he is not just a tight end that runs little drag routes or runs little out routes or settles into zones 5-6 yards off the line of scrimmage to catch passes. He is a true, legit deep threat. I think if JT, there's been a lot of talk about Bowers from Georgia and who the best tight end is, and I think, Bowers is certainly the best tight end in the country. And I think it's because he's a better blocker than JT Sanders is around the line of scrimmage. So I think if JT Sanders can put some effort into being the type of blocker that you need to be around the line of scrimmage, man, the sky's the limit for him. Worthy, man. Worthy almost completed his second touchdown pass of his career. Little trick play. Sark doesn't call them trick plays. I don't know if it's a trick play. I don't care. Backwards pass down the field. Just missed, giving JT Sanders a chance to score. So again, this team, you talk about all the ways this team can hurt you. You got JT Sanders that can get down the field. You got Worthy that can get down the field but can also run the timing routes. You got A.D. Mitchell that can do the same thing. You got Xavier Worthy that can catch a backwards pass and then throw a really nice ball down the field. You got running backs that can come out of the backfield. I thought Brooks had an absolute hell of a catch coming out of the backfield in the second quarter. Little screen pass that, frankly, Ewers just missed on. But he got it close enough to Jonathan Brooks that Jonathan Brooks made a really nice one-handed stab, got up the field, really good run after the catch. And then I thought Cedric Baxter looked really smooth coming out of the backfield on a little short pass play as well. Talked about the RPO. The RPO for Texas is absolutely deadly. If Texas can keep running the ball, and that's why I'm so high on Texas just running the football early. If you can just run the ball early and have success, I mean, you have to have success. But if you can force those linebackers to start really, really worrying about the running game, man, it just opens up so much stuff in the middle of the field in the RPO game. Or you start to see a lot of man coverage and you get open shots down the field. I love seeing the RPO added to this offense. We haven't seen it a ton in the last couple years, but we've seen it a lot here lately. I'm here for it. I love it. Again, great job by the offensive line for being able to run the football so that the RPO is actually mean something. Finally, in the passing game, we got a Johnny Cook sighting. Johnny Cook. Texas fans will know what I'm talking about. The rest of you guys may not have a clue what I'm talking about, but Jonte Cook got down the field, caught a nice pass, just tripped over his feet a little bit, I think. Prevented him from scoring a touchdown. But I think the pass play went for 51 yards. Really nice ball by Quinn Ewers. Good to see Jonte Cook get out on the field. He's been out on the field a few times, but good to really see him make an impact like that, because I think to me, Jonte Cook is really like an Xavier Worthy clone type of player. He's not a big guy, 6 foot, less than 200 pounds, but lots of speed, lots of quickness, lots of suddenness. Can sort of do it all from a route perspective. Seeing Jonte Cook come along, that gives us another weapon. I like it. The defense, man. 300 yards passing. Not the greatest. 305 yards passing, but no touchdowns. Only 60 yards rushing. And again, no touchdowns. The pass rush in this game was absolutely relentless. 3 sacks through the first 2 drives. 5 sacks total. Lots of quarterback pressures. Not only was it relentless, but it was disciplined. You didn't see guys getting out of position. Baylor quarterback, both their quarterbacks were pretty mobile. But you didn't see those guys breaking any runs. They weren't getting a lot of space to come up the middle of the field, which is generally where you get hurt in the quarterback running game when the pass plays break down. And then they did a really good job on some screen setups. You know these guys have been hearing all summer long, all spring and summer, all fall camp. We got to get to the quarterback. We got to bring the quarterback down. But they didn't fall for any of that influence stuff. They didn't fall for any of that, we're just not going to block this guy and hope he runs to the quarterback and we dump it over the top. It was amazing to watch. Very disciplined. PK's defense today looks 100% different than what it looked like when he showed up and when Steve Sarkisian showed up in 2021. You can tell that these guys understand what they're being asked to do, and they're playing it just an absolute hair on fire. It's crazy. We haven't seen a Texas defense be this good in a really long time in Austin. Speaking of the pass rush, Jamon Tapp, man, I'm really excited to see him start to come on at the edge position. He got a really big hit on the QB late, and I think he would have had a sack in the game if they wouldn't have blown the play dead. He had beat his man right off the snap. This defense just, we talked about how they're disciplined and all those things, but there is so much speed on this defense. You got Benda and Ford at the linebacker positions that are just everywhere. Ford had another interception. Jalen Ford is a absolute turnover machine. He just understands. He just gets it. He's just got instincts to play in the middle of the field and watch the quarterback and be where that ball goes. And then in the run game, man, they're both downhill guys. They're both guys that can get outside and pressure the quarterback when the quarterback tries to scramble. Both those guys got after the quarterback hard all night long, outside the hashes. The best thing about the speed is you just get so many bodies around the ball. Populating the football. Steve Sarkisian talks about it all the time. We got to populate the football. And this defense does a really, really good job of populating the football. In the running game, like Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat are absolutely unfair. Tavondre Sweat is having an amazing season. And I'm not sure that Byron Murphy isn't having a better season. Byron Murphy is a problem in the middle of the field. And he's a problem lining up over the center. He's a problem lining up over the guards. He's a problem lining up inside shade of the tackles. Byron Murphy is a very versatile player. And I am not trying to compare him to that dude from, man, I can't even think of his name. That dude from the Los Angeles Rams, like, the greatest defensive tackle in the NFL right now. Can't think of his name, but I feel like they have the same type of body type and the same type of motor. He just never stops. We saw the secondary getting in on the running game. We saw Jalen Catalon come from 12, 13 yards deep to fill an alley and make a big stick on a running play. Again, the linebackers are just active everywhere. Active in the pass game, active in the run game. Secondary, I feel like, is really good at tackling in space. I saw a graph today that I wonder about. CJ Vogel on Twitter, you guys should follow him. He does a lot of, I don't know what his background is, but he does a lot of like statistics and things like that. And you see a lot of stuff he posts on Twitter. He actually, it's kind of cool to see what he comes up with every week from a just sort of a statistical perspective. But he posted a graph today that said something about Texas having 39 missed tackles this year. And so I'm sitting there going, that's like 10 a game. So I don't know where he got those. I don't know where he got that number from. I don't know if that was by his count or if, FPI or whatever all these groups are that do a lot of these statistical analysis of games. I don't feel like I've seen Texas miss that many tackles this year, especially not in space. Derek Williams is a wet blanket in coverage. That guy's like all over the top of everybody. I mean, he's like laying with the receiver when the receiver lays down to catch the ball. Manny Muhammad's another young guy with a bunch of nice plays already this season. Had a bunch of nice plays late in this game. Really, really tight coverage. Really sure tackler. Breaks the ball up really well. I think Manny Muhammad and Derek Williams are like the stars, the future stars of this Texas secondary. Ryan Watts, kind of worrying me a little bit. We've seen him get beat deep a few times this year. He got beat a couple times in this game. I know that kid from Baylor, one of the fastest players in college football. But guess what, folks? There's a lot of fast players all over college football. I'd like to see Ryan Watts be more physical, like right around the line of scrimmage. He's a big dude. I think he's 6'2", 6'3", 210 pounds. There's not going to be a lot of wide receivers that should be able to match up with him physically in the press game. The one spot in this game, the one unit in this game that really had a rough game, in my opinion, was the special teams. 3 muffed kicks. 2 muffed punts and a kickoff return. Muffed. Missed a field goal late. Just a short field goal. That was just Bert Auburn not being focused, falling asleep. And the problem with that is, Bert Auburn, we may need you to make a late field goal to win a game at some point this season. And I'm not hating on him too bad, man. I couldn't imagine being a kicker and not being involved at all, basically, in the game. And then all of a sudden you want me to come in a 38-6 game or 38-3 game, whatever it was at the time, kick a field goal. I get it mentally. It's hard to stay checked in that type of game with the score being what it is. But, man, that's like the kicker's only job, to be checked in and make kicks. Had another one-man to beat scenario on a punt return. Man, X-Worthy, man, is going to bust one for a touchdown at some point this year. I feel like the punt return team is doing a really good job blocking, and they've been one block away, one guy away twice in the last 2 weeks. It's going to happen for them. They're going to house one, and it's going to be a team effort. Another guy I want to talk about in the special teams game, Trey Wisner. Long time ago when Trey Wisner committed to Texas and that class really started to form up, I said, man, I watched him play I watched Trey Wisner play in the playoffs this last season, Texas high school football, and I was really impressed. Really impressed. And so I kind of did a TikTok one day, or maybe I talked about it on the show. I'm not 100% sure. And I said, Trey Wisner is like my dark horse offensive guy for this 2023 class. And he still may be a dark horse offensive guy, but he is 1,000% a dark horse special teams guy. He's all over the place. And he laid some wood against Baylor on Saturday night on a kickoff return. Just took a dude's feet smooth out from under him. Really, really nice hit. And Trey Wisner's not a big kid. So the special teams we really got to clean up. I thought the offense came out and started really well. Defense has done what it's done all season. Just been just a buzzsaw to try to pick up yards against. Got to talk about the officials. I thought this game was pretty okay by the officials, but I do think there were a couple things. There were three things that happened in this game that were just kind of puzzling to me. I didn't think the pass interference against Taft was a legit pass interference. I didn't think the pass interference against the Baylor player on Worthy in the end zone was like a legit pass. And I thought both those calls were really weak. And then the really long pass play in the third quarter where the kid from Baylor catches the ball on a post, goes down and loses the ball. They didn't even review it. And it looked to me like he didn't possess the ball through the ground. And he never made like a football move. He basically caught the ball, got tackled from behind, hit the ground, ball comes out. I think, according to the rules, that's an incomplete pass. So I didn't like that they didn't even review it. Final thoughts for the game against Baylor. This team came out, we one of our questions, could this team go get a fast start offensively? And I thought the team came out really ultra focused. And then I think they started to kind of lose focus when it was about 28-3 in the first half. The defense, again, you can't talk enough about this defense, especially that front seven, front six, however you want to look at it. But going back to the fast offensive start, Texas scored 4 touchdowns in their first 7 drives of this game. Doesn't get much faster than that. And they played some cool there were some cool situational things in this game for me. And I think the biggest one for me was the 95-yard drive for a touchdown after Ford intercepted the ball in the end zone. Brought it out, ill-advised, tackled at the 5. Texas goes 95 yards, scores a touchdown. Doesn't get more demoralizing than being on the doorstep of scoring yourself, making a mistake, turning the ball over. Now we got them pinned, and you give up a 95-yard drive for a touchdown. So I thought the offensive showing was really what I expected to see out of this offense all season, and we just haven't seen it yet. I love seeing the 34 rushing attempts to 19 passing attempts, although we talked about it. I think I would like to see a little more of that up front. But to counter that, like once Sark realized the running game was working really well, he stuck with it. He still mixed in some pass plays, started mixing in that RPO. We saw a big play to Sanders. We saw a big touchdown to A.D. Mitchell. Again, the special teams and a couple long pass plays backed Texas up and put them in some really bad spots for most of the night. But this Texas defense, folks, 6 points in 6 red zone trips for Baylor. when you can play defense like that, that's got to just be sort of it's got to be empowering for the offense to know that your defense can pick you up like that. I'm almost ready to call this defense elite. I'm hesitant to do it just because I feel like the second you do something like that, they're going to get torched in a game somehow. And headed into this KU game, I really don't want to get torched. And they've got some guys that can torch you. But I think the biggest reason I think I'm so high on this defense is there are so many guys contributing on this defense. They rotate guys constantly. Jalen Ford, the middle linebacker, is really the only guy that's kind of always on the field for Texas defensively. Other than that front four is getting rotated out. You got Benda and Ant Hill rotating out. You got Jet Bush coming in now, playing some. I don't know what he's playing. I don't know the defensive scheme, but he lines up on the end of the line of scrimmage sometimes. He lines up back behind the line of scrimmage like a true linebacker sometimes. And by the way, he's having a pretty good. So Jet Bush is a guy that has been around at Texas for a while. You know, kind of like the Christian Jones story, kind of a liability. And man, has he worked himself into making some plays. Good for Jet Bush, man. Good for him for buying in, doing the things he needed to do to get developed by this coaching staff. You can't run on this defense. 2.7 yards per carry for the season. Only one touchdown all season on the ground. I think you clean up the back end on the long ball, which they've been susceptible to. You saw it in the Alabama game. You saw it in this game against Baylor. You're going to see it against KU. You're going to see it against Oklahoma. You're going to see it against a lot of people in the Big 12. Clean that up a little bit. And man, I think this defense is well on its way to being elite. Statistically, it's good. Like it's good like 2005, 2009 good. And then finally, I thought it was a pretty clean game penalty-wise. No procedure stuff. You know, we didn't kill ourselves with being offsides, lining up offsides, illegal substitutions. We didn't kill ourselves with false starts. Really, really solid effort out of the Texas Longhorns. They definitely went into Waco with a chip on their shoulder. They answered a lot of Sean's big questions for this game in a positive manner. And I think that's all you need to do every week. The quick and dirty Kansas Jayhawks edition. Top 25 matchup at Darrell K. Royal. I couldn't find. I tried to look a little bit. I don't know that these two teams have ever met when both teams have been ranked. I don't know that they haven't either. Both these teams are looking to go 5-0. KU's 4-0 for the first time in back-to-back seasons since 1914 and 1915. So this is a good Kansas team. I don't know if it's a great Kansas team. We talked about it in the offseason when we were breaking down opponents. This Kansas team, especially offensively, scares the absolute shit out of me, man. Jalen Daniels is a really, really, really good quarterback. He can kill you with his feet. He can kill you with his arm, and then he can buy some time with his feet and kill you with his arm. It's be a pretty good test for this Texas defense. You know, we talked about relentless pass rush, but we talked about disciplined pass rush. We talked about the speed of these linebackers and how they're running the ball down sideline to sideline, making a lot of plays on quarterbacks outside the hashes. Well, Jalen Daniels is going to be a challenge in that regard. Statistically, this is a really good Kansas Jayhawk football team. We'll talk about that more on Thursday, but I started looking at some stats, looking at some numbers, and some of that stuff is eye-popping for Kansas. I mean, like, surprisingly good. I knew they'd be good because they're 4-0, but I didn't think they'd be as good as they are in some spots. Early line on this game is Texas minus 17, which to me just seems high. I mean, I know Texas went on the road last year and beat this team. I mean, essentially this team. There's some additions and some subtractions, but they beat this team 55-14 last year on the road. But man, I don't know if it's kind of like my Longhorn PTSD. Me and Nash talked about the fans having PTSD for so long because Texas just hasn't been good for so long. So I don't know if I'm like foreboding joy or what you would call it, but I'm just still a little bit skeptical about what this team might do. So far this year, this team has answered the bell all 4 weeks. There's been different times throughout this season where they faced adversity, where things weren't going so great, and they figured out ways to make plays and win games or make plays and keep the other team out of the end zone. We'll see if they can do it against Kansas, who, again, I think is a very dangerous team in the Big 12. I think if you're looking at all the Big 12 teams and you're not talking about Kansas as maybe a dark horse to make some noise in the conference race, the conference championship race, I think you really just are looking at their name and not looking at what they do. So we'll dig into all that a little more on Thursday night show, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Talk all about the Kansas Jayhawks and the Texas Longhorns battling at 2:30 p.m. Central. I can't say that word. Central Standard Time on Saturday afternoon on ABC. Finish up with some random college football thoughts. Recruiting, Brandon Baker, #1 offensive tackle in the country. Mater D, California, commits to Texas. I don't think this was a surprise for anybody. Ever since like midsummer, there's been a lot of buzz. There's been a lot of crystal balling happening for Brandon Baker. It just always seemed like Texas is where he wanted to be. And he cited, Coach Flood and his ability to develop people, the program's trajectory. He sees Texas as a program that's going up, doing it the right way, building a program from the ground up. Something to look for with this Brandon Baker commitment. His teammate, DeAndre Carter, who just happens to be the #1 interior offensive lineman in the country, and an Auburn commit, Texas finished in his top 3. I wonder if Auburn starts to or continues to kind of struggle down through this SEC schedule. If maybe there's not an opportunity for the Texas Longhorn coaching staff to rekindle that recruitment with DeAndre Carter, that would be huge. Real big. That would be some epic type stuff right there. A lot of talk about Ryan Wingo taking a trip up to Colorado this weekend for the Colorado and USC game. He has canceled that visit. I got to be honest, if I was Ryan Wingo, I would cancel that visit too after watching what Oregon did to Colorado. I don't know if that had anything to do with it at all. There's all kinds of crap flying around. You know how people on the internet are. Message board talk. We talked a little earlier about Lou Holtz being high on these Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and what in the world was the deal with this Ryan Day rant about Lou Holtz? So I didn't know. I saw the interview and I was like, what the fuck is this dude talking about? Like, what did he say? What could he have possibly said to elicit this type of reaction, not only in the post-game interview on the field, but also as you set up for your post-game press conference? You brought it up again. So I had to find out. And here's what happened, folks. Lou Holtz was on the Pat McAfee show. And I didn't even know Lou. I'll be honest. I thought Lou Holtz was dead. I know that sounds terrible, but that's the truth. I thought Lou Holtz had passed. He hasn't. And he was live on this show. And that's another thing. I didn't know he did football stuff anymore. That's probably why I thought he passed away, because he just hasn't. I haven't seen anything about Lou Holtz in forever. So give me some grace, y'all. But he goes on this show and they're talking about, Ohio State and Notre Dame game coming up. And Lou Holtz, all he said was that Ohio State's lost to Alabama, Ohio State's lost to Georgia, Ohio State's lost to Michigan. And they've lost all those games because they're not as physical as those teams in those games. And Lou Holtz followed it up with saying, I feel like Notre Dame is a more physical team on the offensive and defensive lines than Ohio State is. Sounds like pretty typical analyst stuff. Like, I'd be surprised if someone else on some other show did not say something about Notre Dame maybe being more physical than Ohio State. I wouldn't swear to it, but I mean, that's kind of like the same thing you hear all the time. And you hear this every Saturday. One team's more physical than the other, so we think this team's going to win. I mean, we're not talking crazy stuff here. We're not talking like an outrageous statement at all whatsoever when you're talking about two football teams. But Ryan Day flipped out about it. Apparently, it's like the worst thing he's ever heard. Again, he goes on this rant right after the game. Where's Lou Holtz? I can't believe he said all this stuff. And that's why I was like, what in the world what did he say? So he's asking where Lou Holtz is. I can't believe he said that about our team. I'm so proud of this team. Our team's tough. It's Ohio against the world. It's always been Ohio against the world. Folks, Ryan Day is from New Hampshire. He played college football in New Hampshire. As far as I can tell, he never stepped foot in Ohio until he started coaching at Ohio State. So I don't know where all this, maybe in other states you can just pop in and like suddenly be prideful about the state. But where I come from, that's not how it works. It seemed like Ryan Day was trying to generate like a whole lot of fake adversity for his team. The whole thing seemed really forced to me. And I'm not trying to defend Lou Holtz at all. Like, Lou Holtz said it. He's a grown-ass man. I just feel like, and I think if a grown-ass man says something that someone else doesn't like, they should be able to, you should get called on the carpet for that, right? You should have to own up to that, right? But I just thought it was weird that Ryan Day felt like this was something that Lou Holtz needed to be publicly called out about. I don't know. What do you guys think? If you're watching this, let me know what you think on that. If you're listening to this, shoot me an email, horntakespodcast@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter. Hit me up on Twitter at horntakes and tell me what you think about this whole Ryan Day flip out scenario seems super weird to me. I don't know. Maybe that's just because if people talk shit to me like and it doesn't go the way they thought, I just go on about my business and live another day. I don't have to go back and like tell other people they were wrong and call other people out and all that kind of crazy shit. Except for this next part, I got to do it. I know, man, these fake CU fans, these new like Deion cult media people have officially lost their minds. Like they have lost their shit. Last week it was, this kid, we got to take his scholarship away. We gotta suspend him for as many weeks as Travis Hunter is out. We gotta post his family and his telephone numbers all over the internet, and we need to all call and text and threaten to kill him because that kid made a hit on a football field and it hurt our dude. That was last week. So then Colorado goes out this weekend and gets their heads busted smooth, wide open by Oregon, 42-6. Like a lot of people already knew was going to happen. Like a lot of people that have been pointing out things prior to the season as to why this Colorado team isn't going to be a big deal nationally. And a lot of those people have been getting beat up by the Deion cult since summertime for basically just speaking the truth about a football team. But the media and the new Deion cult, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the truth. They don't even care about the truth. You got Joy Taylor, who I used to like to watch when she was on the Coward Show or whatever. I don't watch a lot of I don't watch a ton of like TV sports talk type shows, but every once in a while I would check out Coward. And I thought she was pretty good on that show. She was knowledgeable. She seemed like, she understood what was happening in sports, and I can get down with that. I like a lady that understands sports, and she clearly did. But on Undisputed the other day, Joy Taylor says, and goes on this rant about how Colorado being a 21-point underdog in this game is just disrespectful. And you know what? She was absolutely right. It was 1,000% disrespectful to the Oregon Ducks. You got Keyshawn Johnson on Undisputed talking about making up bullshit about, I had talked to a guy whose cousin told me that she had talked to somebody's sister and they had helped Coach Lanning game plan to beat Colorado. I'm not going to tell you who, but I swear and I promise that's what happened. Bullshit. So all these coaches that are jealous of Coach Prime, which is another thing that Keyshawn said, they're just jealous of Coach Prime. All these coaches, right? It's like the entire coaching fraternity is jealous of Coach Prime to the point where they decided to take time out of their preparation for their games to, in some cases, help a coach of a team they're going to have to play later on game plan so they could go out and beat Deion Sanders, because Deion Sanders is clearly just the greatest coach that's ever coached football, and the only way you can beat him is to gather the best minds in college football together and game plan against him. That's essentially what Keyshawn says. First of all, that's the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard of. If it's true, Keyshawn, tell us who your source is. Have them corroborate it. And then I'll believe it. And then I'll come on this show and I'll say I'm wrong. Keyshawn was right. But this whole jealousy bit, I don't understand. Jealous of what? Why so I hear it all the time from the media. I hear it from the Deion cult on the internet. Y'all are just jealous of Coach Prime. For what? Why are the coaches jealous? Why are all these other coaches jealous of Coach Prime? It's not because he gets paid more than they do. It's not because he has all this success on the field that they don't. It's not because he's at a school that has way more resources than they do at Colorado. What is this coaching fraternity that has an underground weekly meeting to try to undermine Coach Prime by game planning against him as a group? What are they jealous of? It just doesn't even make any sense. And then you got these fake bandwagon Colorado fans running around the internet being all pissed off about Dan Lanning's comments. And these are actual things I've seen on TikTok, Twitter. These are actual points of emphasis from these Deion cultists. Dan Lanning, by making those comments, is biting the hand that feeds him, basically. I'm finally starting to figure out that all these fake Colorado fans that have never been fans of college football in their lives honestly feel like that Coach Prime is some sort of savior for college football. That college football was just so downtrodden and in such a bad way that it had to have Coach Prime show up and bring it back to its previous glory. And I'm not making this shit up. Like, it's on the internet. Like, these people actually believe this shit. Folks, college football was a multi-billion-dollar industry before Deion Sanders ever stepped foot on the campus at Colorado. And I'm not saying that to hate on Deion. I'm saying that because you need to understand that college football wasn't some piss broke industry and that Deion didn't come and save it. Because a lot of you folks think that. And this next one is the best, y'all. It's the absolute best. Dan Lanning is a racist and showing his whiteness. And those are quotes. Those are actually things I've seen people say for talking about clicks versus wins. I even saw somebody say he was a racist for beating Deion Sanders the way he beat Deion Sanders. So Deion Sanders can go out and say whatever he wants. They can bring in film crews to film their players talking shit out on the field to other teams. He can be all about the hype, right? But other coaches aren't allowed to motivate their teams. And if they do, they're showing their whiteness and they're being racist. Come on, man. We don't need to do this with college football. We don't need to bring all this bullshit that the media spews in the mainstream media. We don't need to bring that into sports media. Come on, man. We got to be better. I saw one guy talking about where are all the ethnic people in the media and why are they not talking about Dan Lanning's comments and all that, like anything he said was bad. I'll tell you where they are, dude. They're in hiding after showing their ass for saying Oregon shouldn't have been a 21-point favorite over Colorado. That's where they're at. They're off in the corner licking their wounds somewhere, hoping people will just forget about it. so they can go on about their lives. Can you imagine being on TV and saying some stupid shit like that? There's a guy, I don't know who he is. I think he's an ex-NFL guy. He's on that same show. I don't watch that show. I've seen clips of it. I'm getting all this from clips. But he said he bet the house on Colorado as the underdog and the money line. Not only did he think Colorado was going to cover the 21, he said they were going to win the game outright. Could you imagine how embarrassing that would have to be that dude come Monday morning when he had to go on set? I've seen him on TikTok rip into black folks that don't agree with the way Deion is handling things, or don't think that Colorado is just like this monster of a program, or that Deion is saving college football. All these things that these people believe, they don't necessarily buy into that, and so these people rip their asses. Call them all kinds of really hateful stuff. I think what's worse about the media and the Deion cult than what they're saying is what they're not saying. There's this narrative out there that, like, again, this coaching fraternity and all of America is against Deion Sanders, and everybody's bullying Deion Sanders, and the Buffs are getting picked on. There's a narrative out there that's like that. Folks, we've all seen the videos of the pregame before Oregon. Shiloh Sanders out on the field at midfield cussing out Oregon players, telling Oregon players he'll kick all their asses and their coaches too. Listen, I played college football. I understand trash talking. That's just disrespectful. That's not confidence. That's cockiness and arrogance. You saw a video of some dude wearing a 95 jersey standing in the end zone while the Oregon Ducks were warming up with his hands crossed across his chest, just staring him down, laughing at what he was seeing. I don't even know what he was laughing at. Looked like it was probably quarterbacks out stretching before the game. That's not confidence. That's cockiness and arrogance. We all saw Shadur try to poke the Colorado State player in the eye. We all saw Travis Hunter rip a TCU player's helmet off by the face mask after a play in that game. And none of these folks that want you to believe that Colorado's getting picked on and getting bullied and all this crap have said anything about those things. The same people that thought this kid, for making a hard late hit during the course of an actual football play, should be suspended, lose a scholarship, deserved to be doxxed, deserved to have death threats sent to him and his family. The same people that have said those things won't say anything about any of these other things. That just seems weird to me. I think the bottom line for me, and I've talked about this a lot, the bottom line for me is I don't have anything against Deion Sanders. I don't have anything against Colorado at all. But if you're going to turn everything into a circus, you're going to have a circus. And you can't get upset and try to play the victim in the media. You guys can't buy into the circus part of this and then get upset when Colorado gets met with circus energy. Sometimes you run your mouth at the wrong people and you get your head busted. And Colorado right now is doing a lot of mouth running. And the last couple weeks, although they won the game against Colorado State, they've got their heads busted physically. These teams are not scared of Colorado. These teams are not scared. It is not intimidating at all for someone to come out on the 50-yard line during warm-ups and start running his mouth about how he's going to kick everybody's ass and kick all the coaches' ass. That's not intimidating at one single bit to these teams. And nobody bullied them. They went out there and chose to talk shit to Colorado State and Oregon. And instead of talking shit back, Oregon and Colorado State chose violence on a football field, which is the absolute best place to choose violence. They sent two of Colorado's best players to the hospital because two of Colorado's best players can't keep their mouths shut. And again, folks, I played college football. I understand the mouthing game. I get it. But I think it's best for Colorado to probably take a break from the shit talking thing and kind of focus on football. Stop taking part in all this media hype that's going on. These pregame staged filmings of players running out and cussing out other players and talking about how they're going to kick the other coaches' asses, and these locker room stage filmings and all this social media shit that Colorado is all caught up in. They would be better served to stop worrying about that and focus on football, because if they don't, they may not have any players that haven't got sent to the hospital yet. These other teams are tired of hearing about this shit. That Oregon game was a perfect example of a really talented, really physical team that is tired of hearing about a team that isn't near as talented, isn't near as physical, and you went out and disrespected them on their own field in warmups. That's what that whole Dan Lanning crap was about. If the media and these Deion cultists don't get a grip, it's going to be a long season for them. Because this is just going to happen over and over again. USC is about to lump Colorado up just like Oregon did. Colorado might score more against USC than they did against Oregon, but it's going to be ugly again. And looking at their schedule, there are a lot of games coming up where it's probably going to get pretty ugly for Colorado. Deion cultists, like every piece of commentary that you read or hear that you don't agree with is not hate and jealousy, folks. We're supposed to have different opinions. How boring would it be if we all had the same opinion? The value of having differing opinions is usually the subsequent conversation, but you can't even have a conversation with some of these people because their default opinion, their default response to anything you say that's not 100% Deion or 100% Colorado is you're just a hater and you're just jealous, man. And worse, you're a racist. This is all coming from some unreal expectations that you guys have and this 3-0 start that Colorado got. And good for them, man. They went out and did it. They did what nobody thought they could do. They went into TCU and they won a game. And I think that's awesome. I was in my pool watching this game, and me and my dad were hanging out, and I kept saying, Dad, man, like I feel like TCU's going to end up coming back and winning this game, but it's going to be super close. And that's not how it ended up. Colorado did it. They made tons of plays in that game. Why can't that just be good enough? Why does everybody have to like bow down in front of Deion and bow down in front of Colorado and buy into all this hype and agree that this is the way to handle your business before a game is to go out and cuss everybody out? Why does everybody have to do that to not be a hater and not be jealous? I'm really concerned that we're about to let all this other bullshit that's been going on in our country infiltrate college football and just fucking ruin it. And that kind of pisses me off because I don't watch sports for identity politics. I watch sports because I like to watch sports. I don't want to have to think about all that bullshit on Saturday afternoon. I just want to watch games. I want to be entertained by the games. And that's it. So I made a video earlier this summer, before the season started, where I got beat up hard on TikTok. And all I said was, they aren't ready to be a good team. They are not ready in the trenches. They're not talented enough in the trenches. And, man, the second TCU lost that game, I got 50,000 responses that said, this didn't age well. And maybe it didn't at the time, but it sure as hell aged well on Saturday. Listen to these stats, folks. This is why I said what I said about them not being good enough in the trenches. And it's worse than I ever could have possibly imagined. They're tied for 86 in the country in sacks defensively. They got 7 sacks on the season. Texas just had 5 in one game. They're 129th in the country, which is second to last in sacks allowed. Shedeur Sanders has been sacked 23 freaking times this year. 23 times. The Texas Longhorns had 23 sacks all of last season, I think. And we're 4 weeks into the season, and Shedeur Sanders has already been sacked 23 times. He's on pace to get sacked 92 times this season. That is unbelievable. That is unbelievably bad. I feel absolutely horrible for Shedeur Sanders that he's having to play behind that. They're 121st in the country in rush defense. They give up 200 yards per game. They're 130th, which is dead last in rushing offense, 55 yards per game. So what I said about their trench warfare groups not being good enough to win games was 1,000% correct. And I don't even care about that. Like, just realize it, people. Media and Dion cultists, just realize it and go, yeah, man, that's a problem. Not, oh, you're just a hater. Oh, you're just jealous. The funny thing is, I've seen multiple analysts of all races say the same thing after this Oregon loss. Are all those dudes haters, jealous? Lastly, I made a video in the summertime talking about Shedeur Sanders, and I said, I don't think Shedeur Sanders is ready for what he's about to see with D1 defense. He did great at Jackson State. He did it playing against teams that weren't very talented anywhere. And I really did think that moving to D1 football would be a really big change for him, a really big step that he probably wasn't ready to come out and face head on immediately. Because the speed is different. Not only in the secondary, the worst place the speed is different is right there in front of you on the defensive line. And I've already come out and done videos and said, man, I was wrong on Shedeur Sanders. That dude's good. Especially if you can give him time, which they can't. Like, let's not make everything so personal. Let's not turn doubt into really nasty things like hate and jealousy and racism, because that's not what's happening. That's absurd. It's weak. It's Bush League. You guys are better than that. Let's talk about what people are saying. Let's talk about the points people are making. And it's okay to disagree about those. But when you come out and you just say, "Oh, you're just a hater, you're just jealous," you don't leave any room for conversation. And I thought the whole point of us all being on social media and all being on TikTok, and for me doing this show, is so we could have some conversation about sports, because that's what I like to do. I like to talk about sports, especially college football. Check us out Wednesday night. We'll do a Q&A, TikTok live. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. That'll be 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thursday night, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, live on YouTube. We'll have our Tres Otra Games for Week 5. I haven't even picked them yet. We'll break down Week 5 opponent, Kansas Jayhawks. We'll have more random college football thoughts. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Horn Takes. Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, or you can find it at buzzsprout.horntakespodcast.com or something like that. I messed that up. I don't even know what my own link is. It's too long. But you can find it on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys get hooked. Have a good night.